We gaan verder met het Journaal. Ik gaf het al aan, we zijn bij Courtyard Marriott en we hadden eerder een interview met Miss Joanna Kazana. Zij is resident coördinator voor de Verenigde Naties en zij is verantwoordelijk voor contacten met Trinidad en Tobago, Suriname, Curaçao, Aruba en Sint Maarten. En ze is opnieuw op bezoek. 3 jaar geleden was ze hier al en we praten met haar over de voortgang en het werk dat de Verenigde Naties doet voor Curaçao. Goed werk en waarbij ze ook heel positief is over verschillende zaken van Curaçao. Kijk naar een deel van het interview. Miss Joanna Kazana, the resident coordinator for the United Nations for Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Curaçao, Aruba and Sint Maarten. Welcome on Curaçao. It's an honor to have this interview with you. You're here for a visit. First visit on Curaçao was in 2023. During this visit you meet with different people here from the government and other organizations. How is it going so far?
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be back in Curaçao. I've started in the job as resident coordinator back in 2023 and this was the first time I visited Curaçao as part of the regional tour. As you said, I'm also working with Aruba and Sint Maarten and I'm based in Trinidad and Tobago. I have a separate office also in Suriname, so it's a lot of countries to cover.
You have beautiful islands.
We have really a special set of islands.
Yes.
And being the United Nations family, we have also other colleagues who are on a regular basis coming and visiting Curaçao, different parts of the United Nations network, UNESCO, UNDP. We also have colleagues from UNOPS who are engaging in more and more active cooperation. We have colleagues from the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Program. So it's a very kind of rich cooperation agenda, but indeed, this week I'm here for the kind of high-level meetings. Yesterday we had the meeting already with the governor of Curaçao, with the Prime Minister and with the Cabinet of Ministers. I was really very pleased that we had 1 hour of a real exchange on how the cooperation is going and what are the new emerging opportunities and priorities for the future.
And how is the cooperation going on until now?
I think this is a moment of really very active engagement. I think, of course, one has to consider that because of the governance specificity of Curaçao, Curaçao being part of the kingdom structures, of course the presence and engagement between United Nations programs and funds and programs is not exactly the same as you would have in a developing country on the lower level of income with much more typical development issues. In Curaçao, this is an agenda of partnership. It's an agenda of more analytical work and foresight work and helping the government to plan how to address how to integrate resilience into the way that institutions work. So it's much more analytical, it's much more strategic planning, it's much more helping the government to use experience of other countries on climate change, on disaster risk reduction, on diversification of the economy, on also integration of the migrants into the productive capacity of the country. So I would say that it's a very interesting cooperation agenda, and I think that the government of Curaçao is turning to the UN with questions which are really interesting and complex. So we are happy to engage.
But they're open for the cooperation?
Yes, we have very good base of cooperation already established. The government has created something that's called the Sustainable Development Council.
Yes.
We are really happy to see that there is this level of commitment and instrument for the coordination of planning for sustainable development. Sustainable development really requires long-term agenda setting. It requires a national plan with clear targeting of financial resources. And it requires prioritization of the inclusion of certain groups of the society or areas of the country which require extra help in terms of their development dynamics. So, this SDG Council is a very useful instrument. We are meeting with them today to see, what else we can do to support their work. But I'm really very happy to be here because the commitment to SDGs, Agenda 2030, it kind of reverberates in the government program. So we find a lot of commonalities with the United Nations Agenda 2030 and the program of the Prime Minister.
And before this interview, I was talking with some people in the government, and they say they really value the conversations with the United Nations. Not that they don't value the conversation with Nederland, but there's a different, how you say that? There's a different relation between Curaçao and the United Nations, and Curaçao as part of the Netherlands. Do they say that to you as well?
We feel this way. We feel very welcome. Yes, we feel very welcome, and I think that without saying, you demonstrate the way that you cooperate. I think what's really important for us is to see, Curaçao very clearly in the region as a country that has a lot to share with other countries, and this is where we come from. We come to Curaçao to tell Curaçao to speak up and to share your best practices and experience in introducing energy efficiency and cleaner energies, in attracting businesses and in growing the economy in a very impressive way, and also finding local capital, as we were discussing, finding local investors to invest in Curaçao and creating an environment in which that kind of business can really grow. Taking care of the issue of waste and pollution, and still being this beautiful island with so many vulnerabilities. Curaçao is one of the small island developing states. So in the SIDS movement, this is now the kind of moment in the global international cooperation when SIDS have a moment of particular attention. And the solutions that are coming from small island developing states, especially the rich ones, like Curaçao, like Aruba, like San Martin, are going to be very instructive for other islands.
They can be like an example?
It can be a very good practice example of finding solutions to complex problems which are, overwhelming for some of the very, very small states. The Caribbean region is full of very small entities. I think that the way that you collaborate between yourselves, Aruba, Curaçao, San Martin, and also Bonaire, Saba, Estasios, by sharing resources and sharing the burden of certain, in terms of security, in terms of the border controls, in terms of also attracting investments and attracting donor support, even if it's, for instance, donor from the, your almost domestic sources, because of the Netherlands relationship. These are solutions which are of an interesting scale. And if you can organize yourselves in a collaborative manner and apply together for the new sources of funding, that's the kind of model that we would like to see across the Caribbean. So we are here to also highlight very good practices of cooperation.
It is funny that, like all small island states, like all small islands, sometimes we feel really big, sometimes we feel a little smaller. If you say we are a rich Caribbean island, that's not always the vision of the island itself. They look at Europe, they look at others. But is it something that's worth the contribution with United Nations to see that positive thing?
I think so. I think that the UN brings the kind of mirror, the regional mirror and the global mirror.
And it can be beautiful and it can be ugly.
Yes, it can be beautiful, it can be ugly, but you also see yourself against the background of the family of other, islands and nations and communities. And of course, I'm not saying that, everybody is rich in Curaçao.
No.
Of course, that's not the point. But relatively speaking, as a state, as the economy, as the very dynamic economic space, as we say, you stand out. You have had a very quick recovery from COVID. Tourists are coming. I think that the geopolitical dynamics is so far so good and positive for you. Of course, we will see what will happen with the prices of oil and how it's going to affect tourism, etc. But for the time being, it looks like you are not affected in the negative terms by the overall general chaos around the world at the moment. So we believe that Curaçao is lucky in so many ways, but also very smart about how you go about development. And I think you are using your relationships and connections across the region in a very interesting way. So
that's very good to hear. You also mentioned the vulnerabilities of small islands, not specifically for Curaçao, but vulnerabilities we think about like the environment, migration, stuff like that.
yes, this is certainly something to look at in terms of both opportunities and challenges.
Yes.
Moving forward, there are objective forces which are reshaping for instance, demography of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, first of all, it's very, very good to note that Curaçao is a place where people live relatively long. Yes, life expectancy on the island is around 76 years. If you compare it with other countries across the Caribbean, I will take the first neighbor, Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
Venezuela has 2 or 3 years lower life expectancy. So life is good here. If you compare it with the other Caribbean islands, of course, you are a little bit higher. Even Trinidad and Tobago is on the level of 72, 73 years. So that attracts people, but it also shows you that there's going to be more and more older people in the future. So this demographic shift from the younger population to an aging population, where in 2040, about 20% of your population is going to be at 65 years of age or older. This requires planning, and this requires preparedness of the health system, of the pension system, of the care economy to accommodate that kind of shift. You need more people with skills who are going to work providing services to that aging population, which is going to be already out of the labor market. And that is something that every country has to manage, and Curaçao is also at this very, very important point, because the demographic growth is not happening because of the fertility rates, or for the birth rates of the local people. It requires some extra measures, and it requires also opening for the migration from the outside.
And for things like that, it's good that Curaçao knows we're not unique. It happens on a lot of islands in one way or another.
Yes.
And therefore, United Nations helps with planning, programming, and foreseeing things that are going to happen.
Yes. So we are proposing the foresight. We are proposing scenarios.
Yeah.
We are proposing not only in the sphere of demographic change, but also in terms of the climate change. Yes. We are helping the government to understand what will be the kinds of technologies that will be resilient in the future to the changing climate. What kind of, agriculture will be possible thanks to the advancement of new technologies and thanks to the growth of energy efficiency and the new sources of energy accessible already at reasonable prices to the small island developing states. I think there are also other trends. For instance, food security is a huge focus of everyone's attention. And at the individual level, the behaviors of individual consumers are changing so fast that you are getting a new, completely different set of consumers, younger people, who are paying attention to what they're eating at the level of where this thing is coming from, this product is coming from.
In comparison with the other older people who don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. We were not educated to think like that about our food. We were very happy we had choices, yes? We still continue to be happy if we have a very, very big choice of products coming from around the world. But the younger generation, my son who is 15 years old, he will tell me this, not that, because it's not grown locally, because it's not organic, because it has the content of certain components that it. So there are forces which are changing the world very quickly. And I think that it's very important not even to be absolutely certain which is going to be the scenario, because to some extent we cannot predict climate or weather events. But we can observe trends, and we can observe very strong new phenomena and help the government to shape the policy to be ready for that kind of change.
I think it's really interesting. One more topic. There's also cooperation on the topic of migrants, refugees.
Yes.
What's the position of Curaçao comparing to other islands according to that?
Again, I want to say congratulations to Curaçao in general for being very open and being very friendly towards migrants. This is a neighborhood, yes? The way you treat your neighbors is the way to ensure, stability and really a positive dynamics in the region. I think also what is clear here is that immigrants play a very important role in your local economy. They're doing extremely difficult work, and they're doing the work that people may no longer be available or interested to do when it comes to the local population. So they're filling a very important gap on the labor market. But beyond that, I think Curaçao is also aware of the fact that people who are here need to be registered. People who are here need to have the regular status of their presence and stay in Curaçao. We've been quite impressed about this recent initiative to regularize the kind of launching of the registration program for the migrants. Of course, there will be families who will not be able to afford the health insurance, which is required for the registration, and also the registration per se, which also has a cost attached to it. The role of the UN agencies is to help governments understand which are the vulnerable groups and which families may be still left behind because they cannot afford the access to, they don't have means or they don't have funds to pay for the health insurance. So that's the role of the International Organization for Migration. We have a project going on here. We have some funding, not enough, but some funding to assist those most vulnerable migrants in cases where they definitely need help. Nevertheless, analytical work and also trying to understand who are the people who are the migrants here. What kind of job skills they have, what kind of profiles they have, what can they bring to the economy if there is a matching, kind of facilitation of their skills, or upgrading their skills to the level of what the industry here requires.
So therefore you have the government, and they're, like I asked in one of my first questions, they're open for it.
They're very open. I want to say that we appreciate the very close dialogue and cooperation, very practical exchange. I think that this is also quite important, and it stands out here. And I will say that this is the character of relationship here in Curaçao, but also in San Martin and in Aruba, where we see that the government is very pragmatic about these questions, and it is thinking in the interest of Curaçao and welcoming those migrants as part of the local community. So this is really positive.
And I'm positive about all the work that the United Nations is doing with Curaçao. I'm really happy for the interview, and I would like to thank you, and also for the positive words about Curaçao.
Thank you.
Have a nice last day of your visit.
That's
and we'll see you back soon.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be